Hey, seventh graders, dealing with some more rational numbers today, looking at division. All right. So first of all, our same rules are going to apply for division as multiplication. So when it's dealing with signs, right? If the signs are the same, it's positive. If our signs are opposite, it's negative. The other thing we need to make sure that we're doing is let's do fractions divided by fractions. Or let's do decimals divided by decimals. Let's not try and mix and match those. So if we do have a mix and match type question, we want to convert one of them to look like the other. Okay? And speaking of fractions, how we divide by fractions, remember we have a little slogan we've said that's called copy.flip. So dividing by a fraction is something that we normally do not do. Okay? So if I had 2/3 divided by 4/5, okay, we use what's called the reciprocal. All right, the reciprocal. So the reciprocal means we're going to take our second fraction, which would be this guy, and we're going to flip it over. So the bottom goes to the top goes to the bottom. That's where the flip comes from. So the slogan you've heard before is copy.flip. So copy. We're going to copy the first fraction we have written down. The second step is dot, meaning we're going to change this division to multiplication. Okay? And then the flip, we already talked about, I take this fraction here, top to bottom, bottom to top, and now I have multiplication. So I can multiply my tops together, my bottoms together, and then simplify if I can, and 5/6 would be my answer. Okay? So let's look at an example like that. All right? Dividing rational numbers with fractions. So we're going to flip the second fraction over and change the problem to multiply. So copy dot flip. So 6/5 times -3/4. All right. So now it's a multiplication rule. So I can try and cancel things at this point if I'd like. And if I look at 6 and 4, I know that I could take a 2 out of each of those. So now on my top, I have 3 times -3, which is -9. On my bottom, I have 5 times 2, which would be 10. And I can't reduce that any farther. So that would be my final answer. All right, a couple more fractions here. So again, what we're going to want to do is convert the second one to an improper fraction, first of all. So 2 times 3 is 6, plus 2 would be 8. And why don't you go ahead and pause your video and see if you can do the rest of this on your own. All right, I ended up with -1/8 for my solution. So if I look at the fractions that I have, I was dividing, which means I need to copy.flip. So I copy down my first fraction, that's the copy, change division to multiplication, so dot, and then flip, meaning flip your second fraction over. So I have -1/3 times 3/8. I noticed right away I had a 3 in the top and the bottom, so I can get rid of those, leaving me with -1/8. All right. Now, what if we have decimals? Could we convert them to fractions, or take those mixed numbers and make them improper fractions? Yes, we could. But let's look at our actual process for dividing decimals here. So right now I have a negative divided by a negative, which I know my answer is going to be positive. Okay, so if I know that, I can kind of ignore my signs as I'm working. All right, so I have 8.4 divided by 3.6. Okay, now this number out here, we never want that to be a fraction. So how can we change that? Well, in math, we can do anything we want as long as we do it to everything, right? So if I move the decimal one spot here, that's cool as long as I do it here as well. So I'm going to rewrite my 3.6 and 8.4 as 36 and 84. Okay? All right, now 36 goes into 84 twice. So 2 times 36 would be 72. So if I subtract those, I end up with 12. Okay? All right, now I'm at the end of my number here, so I need to put a decimal if I'm going to keep going any farther. I can add a 0 as a placeholder and then bring that down. Okay, so now I need to do 120, or how many times does 36 go into 120? And that goes in there 3 times. So 3 times 36 gives me 108. And now I could subtract these. Let's see, 120 minus 108 would give me 12. Could bring down another 0 and give me 120. Now, do we recognize a pattern here? I got 120, now I'm going to get 120 again. So my answers are going to be the same, okay? Or this is our repeating decimal we talked about a little earlier. So my answer for this one is going to be 2.3 repeating. One more example here. Why don't you go ahead and pause your video, try this one on your own. All right, a couple things I noticed right away. I have a positive number divided by a negative, which is going to give me a negative number. So I made a note of that. Then again, when I write this in my long division form, I can't have a decimal, so I need to move my decimal one spot, which gives me 425 divided by 17. If I go through my steps, I end up with a nice remainder of 0. So negative 25 is my solution.